Hey, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're at in this wonderful world. Welcome to this month's Fire Engineering with the International Society of Fire Service Instructors Humpday Hangout. You got myself, Brian Zaitz, President of ISFSI, Jesse Marcotte, who is the second VP, and our special guest, retired Chief Anthony Kastros, ISFSI member and a 2019 recipient of our Instructor of the Year award, and a well-deserved award, by the way, from an excellent instructor. I got to tell you a quick story on Chief Castros. Before I ever met the man, I was studying for promotional tests probably about 15 years ago, and I bought at the time a DVD. Those are those things that still existed at the time before downloads and YouTubes. They were a round thing, looked like a CD, and I bought his DVD of Mastering the Assessment Center, and I became very familiar with the CSS, Recio VSS block model of to where I could probably go through it and recite it in my head right now if I still had to. But that was my first introduction. At that point in time, I was just enamored with him and his writings, his readings, and just how he approached problems, firegrounds, and the logical standpoint. So we'll get through all that today and talk about some of his newest book that's out there, his training, and just have a great conversation. Before all that, I want to talk a little bit about FDIC. FDIC is in April 7th through the 12th. It is open. Registration is open. So make sure you get out there, get registered. Those hot classes fill up fast. So make sure you get on there and register your people. They're doing, again, the group rates, which is a huge cost savings to departments that are sending multiple members up there. I know my department, we take advantage of that, saving us, a couple $1,000s, honestly, in tuition costs by using that group rate, which is a huge thing for us to be able to send more people up there. So make sure you get on there, get up there. ISFSI will be doing our social up at FDIC on a Tuesday night. So come by, check us out. We'll be at the same booths as we had last year. So come by and say hi. And then we'll be doing our annual meeting. So make sure you join. There is a 10% discount. So it pays for itself if you're going to FDIC. So anybody's going to FDIC that's not an ISFSI member, you're crazy, because you can save yourself some more money. So make sure you join today. So without any further ado, we will get in. I'll let Chief Castros kind of introduce himself, give a little bit of background, and then we'll get into the conversation. So Chief, thanks again for being on today.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate both of you having me. I just love you guys, love ISFSI. The interconnectivity between ISFSI, fire engineering, FDIC is just, for those of you in the medical world, it's like Cushing's triad. Yeah. It's like this great thing. And I love it because you guys, man, I just love it because ISFSI, we're a bunch of idiots, right? We're a bunch of fire service instructor idiots. And if we don't have each other to fall back on once in a while and talk to and reassure and confirm that we're not crazy, then we'll go crazy. And I think that's what I love about you guys, your commitment and the ISFSI mission is that it is a society of fire service instructors in the sense that we all face the same challenges. We all face the same issues, whether it's in your organization, whether it's the people in your organization, whether it's your leadership, whether it's the members coming in that don't want to listen to the message, whether it's the fire service as a whole, whether it's stuff at home. And when you have that group of friends that you meet over the years and you see around the country at different conferences, it really makes it much more enjoyable, much more gratifying, and it's just a lot of fun to be around like-minded nitwits who see the world through the same crazy lens that you do. It's kind of like when I hear Jerry Seinfeld talk about stand-up comics, how they only understand each other. I think that's how firefighters are, and then within the firefighting community, there's instructors. And it's almost like within showbiz, there's comics. Within the fire service, there's instructors. And we're like the comics of the fire service. We travel around, we do our shtick, we do our stand-up. And we always want to know that our message is relevant, that it's helping, that it's making a difference, that it's resonating. And that's what ISFSI does for us. I think we sharpen each other with that. So thank you for that. Thank you.
No, I love that too. I agree. It's when I first got into instructing and, just the company level and doing that stuff, that, it was refreshing to hear someone say, hey, you're doing good stuff. And, or you see your company, like, the light bulbs going off in their proverbial heads. And then as you grow and your message spreads and, like yourself, you write a book or DVDs and you're just like, wow, people are really, taking heed to what I have to say. And it really, all of us are doing this for no other reason to just share experiences and make the fire service better. I mean, that's the end goal of everybody that's an instructor, and it's so cool to see this cadre of and I'll call it his friends in the fire service that develop. That's just so cool. So, Jesse, any thoughts?
No, I love the example of instructors being like the comics and show business.
We are
because
we're the comics.
Again, there's so much prep that goes into it, and I've learned a lot personally from both of you. I had the pleasure of working with Chief Kastros on the ISFSI Professional Development Matrix, which is another one of those resources that is super helpful, regardless of the type of organization that you're in, and helps create that roadmap on professional development, whether you're a firefighter, driver, operator, company officer, or instructor. So I'm excited for this particular conversation, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's good to have you. And both of you look fabulous, okay? The camera adds 10 pounds to my face, specifically my nose. You guys, it doesn't happen. Clearly, you guys look gorgeous. Fantastic. Yes, I'm from California.
We pay Mark a lot of money to make us look good on this thing. So.
Yeah, he's got an app. He's got an app. I don't actually have a beard. This is a virtual beard right here. It's I don't know if it's going to stay with me or not. Or
it's just shades like a snap filter. So I got to ask. So like I said, my first introduction was however long ago when you did the DVD Mastering the Fire Service Assessment Center. So how did that come about? Like, was that something that you'd always been doing, or because I just thought, like, I looked at it and I was like, wow, this is not to be offensive by any stretch. It was so simple. But it was just like, it was great. I was just like, how has this been here this whole time? And it was just,
Well, we're simple. We're a simple bunch, right? We're firefighters. I mean, if it's not burning or bleeding, it doesn't get our attention, right? So you gotta be able to maintain the attention of your audience, whether it's somebody reading your book, watching your DVD, or going to your class. You have to be able to get their attention and keep it. Which firefighters, it's hard. We squirrel all the time, right? If there's food or a workout, or anything else, you just lose the attention. So I wanted to keep it simple, to your point. And I'm a common sense kind of guy. I think in threes, things like task, tactical, strategic. I like to think in those terms and keep it simple and keep concepts consistent. For example, you mentioned soft C's, Recio V's. I appreciate you mentioning that. That's the same system that we use for every incident, whether it's a structure fire, commercial, otherwise, high-rise fire, a wildland fire, an MCI, a hazmat incident. The SAW C's Recio V system is simple, and it's the same thing for each one. So you don't have to learn 27 different ways of doing the same thing. As far as how the curriculum came about, I was very blessed to be involved in a fire service, raised in a fire service family as a young age. My brothers were 15 and 18 years old when I was born. They're still 15 and 18 years older than me. I can never catch up to those jerks. They're old and feeble, and they smell like piss and Bengay, but God bless them. I love them both. They started in the fire service and paved the way for me. And being influenced by them is what gave me the passion for teaching. They mentored me. They taught me, and others taught me. And that's why I wanted to give back. I'm sure you guys both have similar stories of people that impacted you in your careers that made you want to teach and instruct. And so the assessment center curriculum came about because when I was a young firefighter, I had a knack for interviews, and it seemed like because of being maybe from a big family, I don't know what, but I had a gift for gab, like we call it, and I like talking to people. And so I wrote a little book, and just a little, Kinko's self-published little thing with sample resumes in it, and for beer money, I'd teach classes. It was just something to do, to give back. It was fun. And then as I went through my first assessment center process, I realized, well, there's a lot more to this now. And I started adding to that little book. And that little book got thicker and thicker and thicker. And one day my wife said, why don't you get this published? And I said, well, it is published. I go to Kinko's and I print it off. That's published, right? And she goes, no, you idiot. She goes, how about like somebody like publish it for you? And I thought of ISFSI first. I never even think in fire engineering with like fire engineering, not even a thought. So I took it to ISFSI, and they said, no, thanks. We're good. So I told her, I tried, honey. I tried. I'm going to keep going to Kinko. She goes, well, what's this? You saw a fire engineering magazine, in our bed or on our nightstand or on our kitchen table or next to the bathroom, any one of and it's the toilet. There could have been 1,000 of them at the time, anywhere, in our bed especially. She liked that one. And so she goes, what's this fire engineering? Do they do books? I go, yeah, but I go, look, ISFSI said no. And I told her, honey, ISFSI is like the local fair. And I love ISFSI. We've all gone through ISFSI to promote and stuff. So, but ISFSI, to give you an analogy, ISFSI is, AAA ball, and fire engineering is like the pros. She goes, well, you never know unless you try. And I submitted the application and went through the process. And before you know it, I got a phone call from a guy named Jerry Nalis, who said, hey, we're going to publish your book. And I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
That's kind of how that came about. That was in 2006.
2000. Okay. I was going to say, I want to say when 2008, 2007, 2008 was when I was like reading the book, watching the DVD series. I think that's what that correlates correctly. I'm trying to remember my career. The dates all run together on me. I'm telling you.
They do.
It's a hell getting old. I do love that about fire engineering, though. It's, everybody, and they are the literally the pros of the magazine, the articles, the books, but they have something for everybody.
Exactly.
Like, if you're not going to go to ISFSI and find how to get promoted. You're going to find a book that tells you the standard that you need to follow for an officer, the standard you need to follow. But fire engineering breaks it down into like, hey, here, you're going to take an assessment center. Here's a book that's going to help you to take your quantified skills and actually apply them in a testing scenario. Or here's a book on high rise, or here's a book on, our firefighting, or whatever it might be, company officer development, whatever. They just have all that, and it's literally wrote by people like yourself that have done the job, that are have the experience of years, and have gone through the processes both as a person that's been promoted, as well as the evaluator on the other side that's evaluating the promotional process. So that's awesome. That is a funny story, but I just keep going to Kinko's and I keep getting a dozen beers. So
exactly. That was it. That was it. I felt like when I hear comics, talk about the old days in the 70s when they're coming up, the Seinfelds and Eddie Murphy and Jim Carrey, and you watch these shows and these specials on these guys. It's all the same story, like it is for us. Coming in, you're young, you're a firefighter, you realize, hey, I got something to offer. I'm motivated. I love teaching. Hey, I'm going to put together a little something here, and not to take away from ISFSI. I know that wasn't your intent, because that's not mine either. We don't want to. Disclaimer, we're not taking away from ISFSI, because it has its place. It's important. But what I love about FDIC, fire engineering, and the whole community, whether it's the Humpday Hangouts or the podcast or whatever we're doing together, it's a family. We're a family, and it's a big family, but it's a family, and that's the beauty of it. The culture that we have, whether it's from David Rhodes or from Bobby or from Diane or from Mark or from Peter, these are all our brothers and sisters, and it's a big giant family. Sometimes I talk about it like it's the mafia, because it's kind of fun to talk about it like that. People get whacked. People are always worried about getting whacked. I don't get whacked. I'm not teaching the FDIC next year. I got whacked.
Before I get my knees taken out. It's
exactly.
It is always amazing to get up there, like you said, and you see people in the halls, and you're waving, and
it's great.
It is, yeah.
There's an intimacy. There's an intimacy to the 36,000 of us that go to FDIC every year, right? From all over the country and all over the world. There's still a sense of intimacy in that conference with each other, right? We know each other, and we're always welcoming new people. And there's not this cliquey crap that you see in fire departments around the country, right? We all kind of fallen victim to that clique mentality, where a certain few have wield all the power and they only promote their friends. And if you have an idea as an aspiring officer, aspiring firefighter, aspiring instructor, they shoot you down because you're not in the club. And that's what I love about ISFSI and fire engineering as a whole, is that we don't do that. We don't block anybody out, right? ISFSI and fire engineering welcome everybody. We don't block anybody out. It doesn't matter if you're from a large department or small department. It doesn't matter if you're volunteer, combination, or career. It doesn't matter if you've got 5 years of experience or 50 years of experience. We want to hear from you. If you care and you're passionate and you're innovative and you've got a message, you're going to have a voice. And that's what I love. I love telling people, hey, submit an article. Now, what do you mean? Yeah. I can't write for fire engineering. It's an article. What do you mean? Submit it. We'll get it published, And isn't that fun? I mean, I love it. I just love it.
I just co-wrote an article in this month with a guy, battalion chief of neighboring department, on commercial structure fires. And it's based on, he had actually put together this really phenomenal class, and he asked me to come by. And I know we're getting off topic. I apologize.
No, not at all.
This is how we just have conversations. But anyway, we were talking about this article, and he said the same thing. He's like, I can't write. I was like, well, I'll help you. We'll do it together. And he was so excited to see the article actually in the magazine, our names in there, and it can be done. Like we all have experience this year. And I will say this too, you know, I've been going to FDIC, I think now close to 19 years. And that first year, it's very intimidating for people walking the halls. You see these giants like yourself that, you know, I've watched this guy's DVD. I can't, it's like, you know, you get star-stunned. Like that's Chief Kastros. Like I can't.
The only thing giant is my nose. My nose is huge. If I turned from the side, you wouldn't see anything else. So I'm going to stay like right here.
But I always tell guys, I'm like, because, you know, we got guys coming from the department. Like, if you've bought this guy's book or read this guy's article or you want to talk to him, walk up to anybody in the halls. I mean, walk up to Chief Kastros and be like, hey, you know, I read your book and I just want to say, you know, chapter 9 was phenomenal and chapter 10 was terrible. Could you explain what, you know, I'm not saying that, but, you know, I'm saying like all of us at the end of the day, regardless of whatever social status we have within it, are all firefighters, fire instructors that just want to make the profession better, and all are very humble. Just want to have a conversation with anybody. I remember, like I said, it was Anthony Avillo of all people. I was intimidated by because I'm like, oh my god, that's Chief Avillo. Like he does that, and I walk up and say, hey man, what's up? And he's got that goofy New Jersey accent.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah,
how you doing?
How you doing? Like, hey, what's up? And he's talking to me, and now we become good friends. And he was actually supposed to be here today. We got to give him some trouble. He hurt himself on the golf course.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you hurt yourself on the golf course?
I said, dude, that's when you know you've gotten old. Is when you've hurt yourself on the golf course.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. So he was unable to make a radio broadcast show because of an injury.
Because he hurt himself on the golf. Well, I'm going to call him and give him some crap. I hope.
Yeah. So you have to give him a little trouble about that. So let's move on to your current book, Mastering the Fireground Command, the Chaos. Tell us what the inspiration and motivation was for that to come out with that.
Well, thank you. That started in 2000. I can tell you exactly when that started. That was in 2006. I got promoted to battalion chief in 2005. 1 year into my tenure, I had a really bad fire. I was the incident commander of an apartment fire in a 2-story garden-style apartment complex. We got dispatched, and en route, we were told there's a child trapped. And they actually said baby, didn't say child, baby trapped, which is just like, right now I'm getting chills. And this was, almost 20 years ago. And so en route, the update was that the father, a second child, and the father went in to get them out, and now they're all 3 entrapped. So upon arrival, we had two babies and a dad trapped in the apartment fire. Long story short, they all died. Terrible day. It was the first. I had just had my first child. My daughter at the time was only a couple months old, and it was the holidays, and I was the incident commander, and certainly had lost victims in fires as a captain. Certainly lost children before, but never as the IC and a brand new dad. So it really hit me hard. And I tell people, we told each other, oh, there's nothing we could have done different, or there's nothing that would have made a difference. And you tell each other that on those bad fires, everybody does, just to kind of get through it. And it may have even been true to some degree, but it doesn't satisfy or satiate your feeling of failure and heartbreak. And so that day I left there literally in tears. And that day I couldn't get home fast enough to my little girl, my wife. And that day, born inside of my heart, was this seed that started to sprout. And I said, I'm never going to let that happen again to my crews, to my battalion, to my department, and to anybody else that'll listen. And I haven't stopped since. And so it started with internally, I started recording all my structure fires with a dash cam. This is back in 2006 when there was no GoPros yet. So I had a camera, a couple of AA batteries, good little, it held 2 hours of film. We started working on our SOGs. Our department had no SOGs, even though we were 40 stations. We had no SOGs. We had been the result of a merger. We had no officer development training at the time, no command and tactical training at the time, no command training center of any kind. And being dear friends with Alan Brunosini, Bruno was a dear friend and mentor. He wrote the foreword to that first book we just talked about. I reached out to him, and we went down to Phoenix and visited and looked at what they were doing. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take on the SOGs for our department. I'm going to take on training, and we're going to just make it better because we can't do this again. And I'm happy to say, fast forward now, 2024, Metro Fire Sacramento is a phenomenal agency. And it has incredible officer development training, command and tactical training, and they have their own command book. They have their own stuff they've done. But in those early years, right after that triple fatal fire, it was really brutal. There was a lot of older chiefs. I was the youngest battalion chief by age and seniority. And here I was trying to make change, and it was getting my ass kicked by all of my colleagues that just didn't see the need for change. And I'm like, no, I just got my ass kicked, and so did my whole battalion. I mean, I wasn't the one who had to scrub baby skin off my turnouts. I was out the command post. My guys had their asses kicked, and they were, to this day, if you bring up that fire, they get the 1,000-yard stare where they just go back there, right? I didn't have to sit in the back of an ambulance with smoldering, off-gassing babies waiting for a coroner to show up, and yet I was still devastated. Wow. My guys were impacted infinitely more than I was. So that fire that sparked that day has been burning in me ever since. And so that's what led to more training, more classes, which eventually led to us building a command training center, developing SOGs at Metro, recording our fires, and no stone was left unturned. We challenged all of our tactics. We challenged all of our assumptions. We challenged how we use the incident command system. We challenged the organization, each other, and I recorded every single incident I had for the rest of my tenure as a battalion chief was 13 years. So I've got thousands of incidents now. And then 4.5 years later, after that 4.5 years window after that triple fatal fire, that 4.5 years of a cauldron of training, we had another apartment fire, garden style, 2-story, child trapped, just like before. Different apartment complex, but same distance. Also in the morning. And that was what is known now as the El Camino fire, which many people have watched. I've shown the video thousands of times, it feels like, around the nation at FDIC and other places. And it's in our online class and so forth. And we were able to save a little guy, 4.5-year-old boy, using VES. He was unconscious and not breathing when we put him on the gurney, but we had on the gurney within 4.5 minutes of arrival, which at the time was unheard of, using VES, using aggressive incident command and aggressive tactics and a decentralized model. And that kind of culminated in the success. Like, you know what, we're doing it right. We're really making a difference. And I had all these videos, and that's what led to the DVD series in 2011 that came out from Fire Engineering called Mastering Fireground Command, Calm the Chaos, the 3-part DVD series. And that led to more classes and more demand for training around the country. And then one day I read an incredible article from Brian Brush, and this was several years ago, and I was reading about the Firefighter Rescue Survey for the first time. And I was reading about the statistics that he and Firefighter Rescue Survey we're looking at, and I went, "Oh my God, this is perfect. This is the data I've been looking for to quantify and qualify what we're trying to do. It takes the data scientific part with the empirical experience that we had, and it was like a perfect marriage." And I looked at my phone, and sure enough, Brian Brush was in my phone, and I go, "Oh, wait a minute, I know this guy, this Brian Brush guy." He and I had connected before that because he was doing his master's degree and he wanted to use me as a reference. And so I called him up and we rekindled our friendship, and he started coming to our classes. We started cross-pollinating and sharpening each other. And one day he goes, "You need to write a book." I go, "For what?" He goes, "For incident command." I go, "Man, I've written 2 books already. It's like giving birth for a man to twins without anesthesia." I go, "But what? Why?" He goes, "Well, because it's time for a textbook to come out that brings command to the next level. It's time that a textbook that has data in it as well as empirical experience that brings the model that we're using in the incident command system to the forefront. And basically, you're not going to make progress in the country. You're not going to make change without a textbook. A video isn't enough. A textbook can be FESI, NIMS, NFPA, fire scope compliant. It could be used for testing. It could be used for officer development, for SOGs." And I said, "Well, you got a good point there." I said, "I'm only going to write this book under 2 conditions." I said, "One, you got to help me write it because you're really smart and you're great with data. And 2, you got to convince my wife because she knows what it takes to write a book." And he's like, "I could do the first one. I don't know if I could do the second one." And he said, talking to my wife, that elevator pitch that he gave my wife was like the most nervous he's ever been, more nervous than commanding any structure fire. Because my wife's like, "All right, Brian, why should we write this book?" I mean, she was really like, why should my husband give you 2 years of his life? You know? And he did a great job, and by the grace of God, we wrote it, and it's been incredible. The response around the nation has been beyond our wildest dreams. So we feel very blessed and privileged and humbled. So that's it. That's how it happened.
Brian was welcome to come on the show today, obviously, and
he couldn't make it. He was counting widgets.
Yeah, he's got something more important hanging out with us, which I'd question that. But no, he's a busy guy too. So yeah, he's got to get his priorities back in line with us. Yeah. So no, I love it. I love the fact of, like, your story. I sat in your class last year in the back at FDIC, and what I love about you is that the passion you have. Like, right, it's some people are like, well, no, it's here's the story. Like, right, there's a story of why you went down this path of this, feeling this, emotional guilt of this call that could have gone better, and then changing not just yourself, but then taking the steps to change your department and making everyone around you better, then making the fire service as a whole better through your efforts. And, kudos for that.
Thank you.
I want to hit on one thing that I thought was interesting was you talked about saving that within 4.5 minutes, talking about the VES and getting that child out and saving a life, and the great story there. And I remember coming up through the fire service, and this is probably 15, 16, 18 years ago, whatever it was. I was taught VES was this aggressive skill, right? It's for the senior guys. And at the time, I always thought to myself, I'm like, if I'm a community citizen, there's no skill that I don't want my firefighters to be able to implement to save my life or save my family's life.
Yeah.
And I think as instructors, we sometimes need to realize that, like, you're only strong as your weakest link, and your community doesn't want any weak links.
Nope. They don't want weak links. They shouldn't have to tolerate weak links at all. Yeah. They have no idea. It's like a doctor. We all think doctors are all the same. He's a doctor. He's an MD. He's got a white coat. He must be a genius. No, there's doctors that suck, and there's firefighters that suck, and we can't accept that from each other, and we won't. And that's why ISFSI and fire engineering exists. It gives us a platform. Like I said, my department I was fortunate. They supported building the DVD series. We used our department back in 2010. Mark Hawk came out with a film crew for a week, and we shot video of our crews doing stuff to augment the DVD series. I was very fortunate to have a department that supported that. But there were times when there would be a change in leadership, a change in fire chief, ops chief, somebody would change, training chief, and they wouldn't be so supportive. And the nice thing about the platform that ISFSI gives us and fire engineering is that despite whether you're retired, whether you're a volunteer, whether you're a career, and whether you're popular in your own organization or not, you have a voice, whether it's through an article, a class, a video, a podcast. You have a voice, you have a platform to share your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, your heartache, so that others don't have to repeat the same mistakes that you did. That was what was every time, like, for example, when we saved the little guy, 4.5-year-old little JT in El Camino, I cried again 4.5 years after that triple fatal. I cried again, but they were tears of joy. And I'll never forget when the doctor said, I went to the ER after he was transported about an hour later, and he was on a ventilator. And I talked to the ER doc. I said, what's the prognosis? And he goes, he doesn't have any respiratory burns. I think your crews may have saved his life. And when I still get chills, all these years later. And I went, and I started crying tears of joy. And sure enough, the little guy, we prayed and prayed and prayed with his family, stood vigil. They transferred him down to the Shriners Hospital. He was on a vent for a week. And when they took him off the vent, he sat up, walked out of the hospital. And that was redemption. That's how we knew we were doing it right. So now, as we travel the nation and teach this class to everybody all over the nation, departments we're teaching this class. And they call us. Sometimes that day or that night, we made a grab. We made 2 grabs. We took what you taught us and we made 2 grabs. Miami Fire Rescue, Miami, Florida. The night of the 3rd day of class, we were on airplanes and we did a stopover in Salt Lake City. We got a phone call from the guys from that night before. At the last night of class, we made 2 rescues last night in a con home that we wouldn't have made without the training you gave us. I was like, I mean, this is the kind of training you want, is where you can instantly go out and utilize it. You don't have to wait. You don't have to, It's stuff you can use at the tactical level right away. But we get those calls or texts or emails a week later, a month later, 6 months later. Hey, we made a grab, made 2 grabs, made another. This fire went much better. Hey, communications were much better. We could have easily had a Mayday, but we didn't. That's why we do what we do, right, guys? That's why we do what we do. And
yeah, as an instructor, I feel like we spend a lot of time, and rightfully so, on why something is important or why we should be doing one thing versus another thing. But when, as the new kid on the block, so to speak, when you see somebody like Chief Kastros at FDIC, the why you're thinking, like, why is this so important to that person? So I appreciate you sharing that example with us of that fire that you had, that triple fatal fire, because I feel like there's so much that we can learn in times of adversity, right? It's easy to be the person that continues to win and continues to have triumph in everything they do. But when we have those moments where we feel like we're defeated, not only identifying a problem, but as an instructor and as a person who wants to do good, finding a solution to that problem and what gap exists and how do we fill that gap. I feel like that the story that you just provided was exceptional in terms of why these things why it became important and why it has remained important. And one thing that you've touched on a little bit that I would love to talk about a little bit more is, so you had that time period in between that first fire to that other fire where you were able to save the young boy. But now even more time has surpassed since that incident, and you continue to adapt and evolve. So the data that was available in the fire service back in 2005, 2006 is a lot different than the data that we have at our fingertips in 2024.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was a really important emphasis of this last book as well, to include that data, whether that was the data from Firefighter Rescue Survey or stuff that's coming out from FSRI.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could talk about that a little bit as well.
Oh, no, I would love to. Thank you for teeing that up, Jesse. Yeah, for sure. That was the thing for me was, look, the fire service is evolving and using data. And by the time I was, thinking about writing a book or even at the end of my career, active duty, I'm like, I'm getting old. I'm an old dinosaur, and the fire service is using data more. And I made the transition from being an empirical experience guy to both data and experience, and how do we mesh the two, get the best of both? Because I feel like I always tell people I've got salt in the front and pepper in the back. I speak both languages. I speak old guy and I speak young guy. It's like a mullet, right? And so I want to be that interpreter between the generations, between the philosophies. And so when I connected with Brian, he was answering questions that I wanted to know through data, through science, through firefighter rescue surveys. For example, I always would ask in my classes before knowing Brian and knowing the information, I'd say, what's the golden time frame for a victim? And we always know that the golden hour for trauma, right? From impact to surgery or impact from definitive care, it's a 1 hour, the clock starts, boom. I'm like, what's the time frame for a fire victim? And for years I'd ask that question, and we'd all agree, well, wait, it's not an hour. Fire victims don't have an hour. And we find out 6 to 8 minutes from arrival. Boom. Well, back in 2011 or 2010, JT was on the gurney 4.5 minutes from arrival. Another piece of data, what's the most successful rescue tactic? VEIS. What did we use back in 2010? VEIS. A higher likelihood of, the data tells us that there's a higher likelihood of survival if the victim is found pre-knockdown. I have video and pictures of the victim being pulled out just simultaneous with knockdown, not waiting until knockdown. So all the stuff that the science brought out to bear, fleshed out in the El Camino fire, we were able to go back and superimpose, if you will, the data onto our experience. And the experience was captured in video, and it was captured with photographs from the Charlie side and video from the command post Alpha side, and certainly testimony of everybody who was there and looking at the timelines. And we're like, oh my God, everything that Firefighter Rescue Survey says, we did before there was a Firefighter Rescue Survey. And so now to have both is so powerful. And that's what I love about Brian. That's why I think he and I, we make a great team, is because I'm the old fart experience guy. And he's and no disrespect, but he's 10 years younger than me. He's the younger data guy, although he's an outstanding tactician, is very experienced incident commander. He has an amazing skill set. That's probably better that he's not here, because I wouldn't talk this nicely about him in front of him. So I'm kind of glad he couldn't make this webcast. But he's really great at taking the data and making it usable and understandable and applicable to firefighters. And that's what I love about what he did in our book. You look at just chapter 1, the history of incident command, and that he wrote that chapter. Amazing information on the history. How did we get here? And he talks about America burning in the early 70s and how we're kind of having a renaissance now again, but it's about tactics and about civilian lives. So it's an exciting time. I'm feel tremendously blessed to be still hopefully contributing, and this book seems to be doing that.
No, it's good. Eddie Buchanan once told me, he's a big data guy, as we all know, and he said it's amazing the fire service. We measure everything up until the air brake pulls, and then once the air brake releases and we head back to quarters, we go in service and go in quarters, and those are the times. And that whole gap of actual being on the fire ground, for the longest time we never captured. And so with the Firefighter Rescue Survey and the work of FSRI and others, we're finally starting to recognize our works on the fire ground and actually being able to put data points to, hey, this actually makes more sense if we do it this way or that way or what, versus just because as firefighters, we know we're hard-headed too, and so if it's always worked for me this way, I'm just going to keep doing it, even though it may not be the best for the citizen or the community. So
the analogy, to your point, Brian, the analogy that was brought up last week, we were talking about the NFL. I mean, look at how many more teams are going for it on 4th down now.
Yep.
Right. I mean, in past that never happened. Right. It can be 4th and inches. They're not going for it. Right. No matter where they were on the field, they almost never went for it. It was very rare. So it was almost like a VES, right? It was at the time, it was like a very rare, high risk, high reward tactic in football, just like VES is for us. Yet now, look at how many more teams are. Well, it's because they're looking at the data. They realize that, hey, there's a percentage of success here overall, that why wouldn't you do it, right? Especially at this, at this level of the field, wherever your position is, your score, all those things come into play. Just like on the fire ground, there's all these factors that come into play. And so that's what I love about data and experience. To Jesse's point, is that when you have both, it's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly powerful when you can really take the best of both and create either SOGs or tactical training or tactical decision or incident command. Because incident command used to be very, very immune to change, right? We change everything from knots to ropes to freaking SCBAs to freaking ladders to 1,000 different ways. CPR changed every 2 years. We had to learn different, how many inches your compression was, and now you don't even, there's no ventilation or whatever. I don't know. But command was immune because all the old guys and gals, all the old farts, had a death grip on command, and they convinced themselves and everybody below them, nope, we don't need to change. This is how it is. There was not even talk about changing incident command, and I'm glad that we're challenging that now. And the book and the curriculum that we teach around the nation challenges it from both an experiential and a data-based point of view. And it's hard to beat when you see the results. The results speak for themselves. The amount of feedback we're getting on rescues around the nation, more safe, effective, and efficient operations, better communications, better accountability, which allows for a more aggressive deployment of resources. And that's the thing, that people think that command, the old guard of command, of centralized command, was holding everybody back, right? You got to ask command for permission. Simon says, "Mother, may I?" And our model of decentralized command is about being aggressive, rapidly deploying resources, but accounting for them from the onset, doing it in real time. And also, it's the military model. Why would we not follow the military model of mission command and decentralized command? So that's kind of hopefully answers your question, Jesse, for that you're talking about there.
Yeah, I love so much of what you said. And sometimes in the fire service, at least for a while, I felt like the term data-driven had a negative connotation to it, or it was a buzzword. But the reality is, the more we dig into the data, now if I'm the firefighter on the nozzle, there's data there to support what I'm supposed to do. Or if I'm the firefighter that's throwing the ladder for the window-based search, there's data on what I should do. And when you see all these different opportunities, whether it was Project Mayday or Firefighter Rescue Survey. There's so much incredible data there to help bridge, and I know you talk about this in your book as well, to bridge that gap between the people doing the actions, the task and the tactical level to the strategic level.
Yep.
And I think that's really empowering for the people who are in those positions to perform those tasks, knowing that they can rely on their experience and what they know through data to get that job done.
Yeah. And that's what drives the training, right? One of the texts that we used or philosophies that we adopt in our training in the book is The Art of Warfare by Sun Tzu. And there's so many axioms of command in that book that are so relevant to what we do now. And one of them is that every battle is won or lost before it's ever fought. And so that's just another way of saying training. If you train to it before the event, you're going to be more successful in the event. And if you train based on data and experience together, then that's a very powerful tool, not only for like you said, for the outcome, but why is the outcome going to be better? Because your resources, your task level workers, your soldiers are immediately supported by tactical supervisors who bridge that tactical gap that you mentioned between the work being done in the hazard zone or the hot zone and the incident commander at the command post. That gap is something we've identified in our curriculum and in the book that I don't think was ever discussed before. The tactical gap, the tactical space. That's where the battle is won or lost. And when you bridge it properly, and I'm not talking about overinflating the incident command structure and everyone's wearing a vest and everyone's freaking wearing a helmet with a thing and everyone's got a clipboard and no, we're not talking about that. We're talking about high speed, low drag incident command. We're talking about aggressive incident command. And that allows the workers to do what they want to do, which is get their asses in there as fast as possible and get the job done. But we got to communicate and account for and coordinate to maximize the output, what happens at the end. For example, in the El Camino fire, you'll see the firefighter with the victim over his shoulder sprinting out because he knew exactly where the ambulance was and where the gurney was. There was no looking around, oh, where's the ambulance? Oh, shit, command forgot to get an ambulance. Or the ambulance is 2 blocks down the street because we tell them never to park close to the incident. It was boom, boom, boom. And that's instead of a linear approach to incident command, we take a multifaceted exponential approach, if you will, to incident command, where everything's happening at once. And you can't do one brain. I'm an idiot. I can't do that. I need help. Incident command, modern incident command is a team sport. It's a team sport, meaning those tactical supervisors who are in that tactical gap between the IC and the crews working, they're the ones who make or break the incident. They know where the victims are. They know what the fire is really doing. They know what the actual structure is doing. Is it tenable? Is it going to collapse? Do I have vent point ignition? Is this thing going to go to hell in about 2 minutes? They see things that the task level workers don't see and the incident commander doesn't see. And I don't care if the incident commander is out front on the sidewalk. They can't see the upstairs. They can't see the inside. They can't see the back. So you need tactical supervisors. And again, not an overinflated a bunch of chiefs coming in from lunch from sushi and they come into their sedans and they show up and their turnouts are really clean and we got to wait for them to engage. No, we're talking about working tactical supervisors who are engaging from the get-go and can it greases the skids and it just oils the rails of the incident of the resource to get them in and out faster.
I love that. I've always said the company officer, in my opinion, is the most critical role in the fire service. Makes or breaks a firehouse, makes or breaks a fire ground, because they're the tactical supervisor that's going to determine, how we're going to do this. From a training perspective, and we've all probably seen over the last 5 years training change. We just did some search training with our departments on, we had all the firefighter rescue survey numbers up, which 10, 15 years ago, the only thing you saw in a training tower was straw bales and, pallets. And now you're seeing plywood with numbers and real, and you're seeing pictures with doors with temperatures. And so it's just a different fire service and a different training model, which is good, right? We're providing that, like Jesse said, the why. But I also think too, from my perspective, doing training is, getting these guys to that mindset of erasing those proverbial training scars that maybe were taught in their initial recruit days of hanging on boots, doing search, and being, punching people while we're moving. That those days are done. You can't do that. You're not going to be efficient and effective to do those sort of things. And so, I had an honor to do some training outside the state of Missouri a couple months ago, and I asked. It was a bunch of chiefs in the room, and so I asked them. I said, when's the last time your department did SCBA drills? When's the last time your department did a basic search drill? When's the last time your department did hose deployment drills? And so, I'm a basics guy. I'm not a smart guy, but I can fundamentally put together trainings on those basic skills because I know those skills. And I think that if you want to really get aggressive in your actions and, to your point, have effectiveness on a fire ground, you got to be doing those simple basic drills so that when it's time to execute a vent or search, you're not looking around, and that's built off of good SOGs and making sure that everybody knows the game plan before we're going to the game.
Exactly, and that's where, like I said, Art of Warfare by Sun Tzu. Every battle is won or lost before it's ever fought, right? If you look at Bill Walsh when he was the head coach of the 49ers, and he changed the game. He changed how it was known as the West Coast offense. He changed how head coaches and how offenses deployed. He just changed, and they won so many Super Bowls back in the 80s because of that. He was so far ahead of everybody else. Joe Montana was not the fastest guy on the field by any stretch. He didn't have the strongest arm. He was not a Patrick Mahomes by any stretch.
Yeah.
Right. But he was part of a system where he stayed calm in the chaos. Right. Joe Montana was very calm. However, he was also part of a system that understood and could change and was changing the game. And so their deployment of resources, if you will, their offense, it was changed the entire paradigm of the NFL. Just like right now, we're seeing that with more fourth downs. They're using data, kind of like Moneyball. Remember when the Oakland A's, when they started using data? I love that movie. But what happens is it catches on like fire. And pretty soon the 49ers, the A's are not the best because everyone's adopted it because it's so good. And that's what we want in the fire service is this stuff isn't proprietary. We want to share it. It's important to share that what we're doing, And I love what you said about just the drill grounds are so different. Brian just got done building the latest and greatest state-of-the-art burn facility at his training center in Midwest City, Oklahoma. When I was coming up, you're talking about, different fuel models. When I was coming up, it was mattresses and gasoline. That was in the mid 80s. And it was like, okay, I guess that's what we do, And we got a lot of people hurt, and you came out of those fires with thinking you're all that in a bag of chips. There were scars and badges of honor at the time, right? And the turnouts and the gear we took in was not anywhere near as sophisticated as it is today. And so everything has changed, and I'm proud of us as a fire service that this is the first time I'm sensing we're starting to actually catch up with the need that we have at all levels, really.
No, it's good to see it. Go ahead, Jesse. Yeah.
I was gonna say there's so many excellent points, and when you mentioned like high speed, low drag, you mentioned in EMS and in so many other aspects of our job, we're very willing and able to change with the times. So I think back to like a cardiac arrest. If you ran a cardiac arrest with an incredibly centralized command model, right? Just picture that, like rescue one from command. Go ahead, rescue one. I need you to do compressions, right? By the time we got around to the last order, how much time would elapse in that situation?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I love it.
I like that idea. I like that concept. I think it's relevant, and I think it's fantastic that the fire service is embracing some of these concepts that allow our high achievers and high performers to be in a position to make a difference. So I found all those points very relevant. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I think to your point, Jesse, the high achievers, they should not be the exception. They should be the rule, right? So if we have a system that accepts it, promotes it, teaches it, holds people accountable to it, then it becomes the norm. And you're replicating these tactical decision makers throughout the fireground. I mean, why should I entrust a company officer with $1 million piece of equipment, an entire facility called the firehouse, anywhere from 2 to 5 human beings and their lives and their families, to go out there, be first in on a structure fire, go out on codes, like you said, and shock people and put narcotics in them and supervise those operations. But I can't let them run a division on a structure fire because they just don't know, because they're not, because I need them to be on a ladder. Are you serious? Really? That's where I'm like, come on, let's expect and train more out of our company officers. We need to, because they want that. Our company officers want to be empowered, don't they?
Yes.
Right? They want to be empowered. They want to be trained. They want to be equipped, and they want to be left alone to do their work and supported. And they're tired of being glorified clipboard holding EMT, technician, clipboard administrative paperwork people. They want to be tacticians. They want to be training officers. They want to be empowered. And when you give company officers the training and the authority to run a division, to run the back of a fire, or the top floor or the third floor of a fire, or the front end or whatever, they will not disappoint you. With the right training, they will exceed your expectations, and they will make it work. They will make it happen. And the arguments I get are, well, that's taking somebody away from the work. I would rather lose one set of hands and gain a brain than have another set of hands on a hose line or on a ladder or whatever. That brain is going to be exponentially more valuable to the incident than one more set of hands doing a task. And what I mean by that is, like in our program, we talk about a fire where there were 5 victims trapped in a 2-story fourplex. This is in Alameda County, California, and they did an amazing job rescuing all 4 victims. There was 5 reported. There ended up being 4. They rescued all 4 of them. And the incident commander was a captain for the longest time because the chief was out of position, and he had to run it with just him, his crew, and an engine crew. That was it for a long time. And they were able to rescue all the victims. And he did a marvelous job of being that incident commander, company officer, incident commander, tactician that we can just that one person made the incident, saved those lives, because he knew what was going on. He knew how to deploy the resources. He saw what was really happening, where his crews were head down working in the task level, not seeing the big picture. He was that one head up that made it work, and he bridged that tactical gap. And that's where the battle is won or lost. That's where the lives are saved or lost, is in the tactical space. Because, so you kind of, both of you alluded to this, I don't care how good the incident commander sounds on the radio if the crew's working are a bunch of knuckleheads and they don't know what they're doing, right? Yeah. I don't care how good the incident sounds if they're not aggressive, if they're not pulling the right hose line to the right location, and they're not getting aggressively inside to do the right search and ventilating and coordinating, right? It doesn't matter how good the IC's little org chart is. Conversely, it doesn't matter how good the VES is if it was the wrong window. It doesn't matter how good the vertical vent is if the roof's going to come down. It doesn't matter how good the fire attack was if it caused a flashover because they waited too long for water. So those are all tactical aspects of the Fireground that are grossly underappreciated, under-recognized, underutilized, and we don't take advantage of it. And to your point, Jesse, we call it the tactical gap. We've named it in the book. It is where the battle is won or lost, and we teach that in our curriculum around the country. And organizations around the nation are taken to that like firefighters to water. I mean, they love it because I think they knew it was there. They couldn't see it. They couldn't identify it. They couldn't name it. But now that they have, it's like, oh my God, it's right. It's been right in front of us the whole time. And bridging that gap is where the lives are saved.
I'll say one thing I think that's interesting in it. To your point, firefighters want to do their job. I had a neighbor that once told me he did concrete, and he lay concrete. He goes, "You guys are a unique breed. Like, you guys always, if all 3 of us were FDIC and one of those buildings was on fire, all 3 of us would stop on the side of the road and look at it and watch it, and we critique it and say, well, why are they? We do that. That's what we do as firefighters. There's no other job in the world that does it. Like, concrete layers don't walk by other people pouring concrete and be like, hey man, you need a hand. Hey man, can I help you out?
Right.
We're just a different breed. It's just
you're doing it wrong. Let me do this for you.
Yeah, here, let me get a trowel. I'll help you out here, pal. That's just not what they do. And it's a cultural thing. And to use the analogy of the NFL or any professional sports, you look at some of the highest performing players in the sports world. They're making millions of dollars. And what's more important to them? Yeah, they're getting a ton of money, but they'd rather be on a winning team. And so, books like your book that you have with mastering the Fireground Command and Chaos, Call Me Chaos, I'm sorry, is it allows you to get aggressive and have that winning culture in your department. Nobody in the fire service wants to be part of a cruddy department. No. People don't want to put effort and work hard for someplace that's not going to put the effort into them. And so, we as fire chiefs and as fire officers and company officers, we have to understand that and challenge our people, make our people do better, challenge the administrations, challenge our councils and our boards and say, hey, listen, we have to, this organization lives and dies by the success, and our community lives and dies by our success. Literally, right? That's the case. And, like I say, no one wants to be part of a losing organization or something they don't feel is moving in the right direction. And I think that's so critical to understand that. So I think you make up a phenomenal point there, Brian, that you're emphasizing that point, because and here's the thing, our firefighters won't tolerate it anymore. They won't tolerate it. There's don't want to be, then there's won't tolerate, right? And why not? Because they have at their fingertips, they have more data and more information at their fingertips, and the ability to communicate and the ability to look at other incidents and their own incidents and critique. They have more information available to them than ever in the past, ever, thanks to technology, whether that's good or bad. I think it's good because we now can extrapolate and break down things like we never did before, and the data is available to the firefighters. In the old days, like Incident Command, it was a very centralized system of leadership. In other words, the chief knew everything. Everything goes through the chief. I don't care if it was specking a rig or mopping the floor. The chief had to approve everything. And whether it was on the fireground or in the firehouse or administratively or whatever, we're not tolerating that anymore. There has to be decentralized command, whether it's in the fire department or, which is known as what, mission command on the fireground, or mission-driven culture on the non-emergency arena. It's how we build trust, how we build modern teams. And it's all about decentralization and trust, and to get that, you have to have training. You can't have trust without training and time. And so our firefighters are going to go, wait a minute, no. I'm not going to tolerate. I see what everyone else is doing. I see the data. I'm watching the videos. I've got friends that I met at FDIC. I'm listening to these podcasts. We're not doing it right, and I'm not going to tolerate it. And I love it. They're emboldened. They're empowered, right? Yeah. When I retired, we were, myself included, we were going to fires before we were getting dispatched because we had the apps, right? We had the apps, and we're like, we're on the road 2 minutes before dispatch. They're smart, and if you don't stay ahead of them with your own, as the incident commander or the chief, if you don't stay ahead of them with your own skill set, with your own ability to interpret data, with your own technological ability and your philosophy and your mindset, you don't decentralize and give them that power, they're going to run past you, and you're going to become obsolete. Whether it's on the fireground or in your office at headquarters, you will be obsolete and they will run around you. Are you guys seeing that at all? 100%. I'm seeing it. Yeah, they just won't tolerate the mediocrity. They just won't do it, which is good. They shouldn't. It's their organization, and they want to be led and moved in the right direction, and trained and being able to, when the call hits, just like the NFL, the Major League Baseball, soccer, whatever your sport is, choose your sport. Those players want to execute at the highest level and be part of that team, and so do our firefighters. And so you have to support that, or at least I think you should.
100%. Yeah.
Especially in today's day and age, right? In today's in the arena of recruitment and retention. So why can't our training programs and our operations become not only a big recruitment tool, but a big retention tool? I think when they don't meet those expectations, that is one example. People don't feel trapped in one department for 25 years. Maybe there's another department that they'd like better. So I think these are all excellent examples of why we need to embrace change in some instances, but not throw the baby out with the bathwater, and still value the experience of the people that have come before us. And I think that's a great balance to strive for organizationally, regardless of what organization you're in. And the people that we're hiring are intelligent people. They're capable people. So let's let them, let's put them in a position to be successful. And I think that's what all the stuff that Chief Kastros does that's exactly what it facilitates, which is excellent.
Thank you,
100%.
brother. Well, I couldn't agree more. I thank you for that. It's funny. You mentioned retention. Recruitment and retention is a bigger challenge now than ever. I'm sure you guys are seeing it more than I am. Everywhere I go in the country, everyone's struggling. Now, particularly here in California, it's really bad because of our pension program is very robust, and people are retiring sooner. They're retiring closer to 50 years old than in the past when they would go to maybe 55 or 60, which is creating a demand, a vacuum or suction upward mobility. And we can't retain, let alone recruit enough people. And now they have the option, which they didn't have in my day. When you got hired in the 80s, you took the first job you got, because you would show up. There'd be 3,000 of us for a handful of jobs on a test. Now it's the opposite. There's 3,000 openings and a handful of people. But between COVID and just general culture and the generational stuff we could get into another time, there's just not the same passion towards the fire service as there once was, and yet there's a much more opportunity because there's so many vacancies. So now firefighters, it's not uncommon for a firefighter in a 2-year span to work for maybe 3 different fire departments until they find the one that's perfect for them. Maybe it's a pay issue, maybe it's location, maybe I don't want to be on an ambulance and transport, maybe these guys have more truck companies, maybe this place is busier, this place is quieter, this place is closer to home, whatever. They can cherry pick where they work. And if leadership doesn't get ahead of that, we're going to be looking at a whole new world pretty soon.
I couldn't agree more. It's a different world. It's a different fire service. I could tell you stories about the hirings around our region of guys asking, to your point, questions. We took the first job available, and they're asking, "What's your retirement? What's your long-term, post-retirement health care? What's your longevity?" I'll pass. I'm going to wait for the next one. It's like, that was crazy.
Whoa.
Like, you just didn't. Yeah, it's a different world. So,
Isn't it?
well, guys, we've been at this an hour. What's that?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I was going to say, to end on, they're also looking at other professions. I call it the 3 strikes clause. If a firefighter or aspiring firefighter doesn't land in their perfect little spot after about 3 tries, they're just going to say, you know what, fire service isn't for me, whatever. Even after 5 years, they may leave and go, whatever, I'm going to try a different profession. It's mind-boggling to people like us, right? So
it's a different world, but it's if we as leaders, we don't adapt to it, we're going to be run over by it. So we have to figure that out. So I was going to say we're wrapping up, but we're at an hour, a little over an hour, so that's good. Everybody get out there, get on fire engineering books and videos, get on Amazon, Mastering Fireground Command, Calming the Chaos with Chief Kastros and Chief Brush, bestseller. He mentioned earlier, it's in his 4th print, which is just phenomenally amazing, given its release date of this year, and it's a must-have for every firehouse across the nation. So make sure you're picking up a copy for yourself. If you're in a command role, it makes up you're picking up a copy for each of your firehouses for sure, to get your people in that. All of you guys will be at FDIC 2025. So if you want to give a little plug on what you're going to be teaching up there, and make sure, like I said, get enrolled for that. So Chief Kastros, what about yourself? What are you doing up there this year?
I'm excited to announce that for the first time, Mastering Fireground Command, Calm the Chaos will have a hands-on component. It's always been a 4-hour pre-con workshop, but now we're going to have 3 4-hour hands-on sessions, 1 on Wednesday afternoon and 2 on Thursday morning and afternoon sessions, each 4 hours, walk through hands-on. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you'll have to sign up for that. It's not something you can just walk up and just join up like a class. You're going to have to sign up for that. I hope you do. I'm doing the typical 4-hour pre-con workshop. I believe it's Monday afternoon. So I look forward to seeing you all out there for that. And also, if you want us to bring your training, our training to you, we're teaching all over the country. We're blessed to have 25 members of our team now. We're teaching all over the country, Mastering Fireground Command, Calm the Chaos. We're doing online training for you. We have self-paced. We have in-person classes, and we have a train the trainer, a hands-on workshop, which is a lot of fun that we do around the nation. We'll come to you, and we do smoke machines, mannequins, multiple companies. Everyone's in full PPE, and we're doing incident command and tactical training. So let us know. You can reach me at info@trainfirefighters.com or trainfirefighters.com is the website. Also, we've got a lot of assessment center classes coming up around the country. So please look at us for that too.
There you go. There's
Thank
the website popped up on the screen. It's perfect.
Thank you.
Jesse, what about yourself? What do you got going on this year?
Man, am I relieved that my class is not scheduled during one of the Mastering Fireground Command classes. Whew.
Yeah.
So this year I'm doing a 4-hour pre-conference class Monday morning right out of the gate. 4-hour workshop on probationary firefighter training program, setting and raising the bar. So essentially what we'll be doing is talking about that probationary firefighter training program playbook, if you will. So what are all the components? What does that look like? What are those X's and O's? And how can we welcome those new members into our organization, assimilate them into our culture, give them the knowledge, skills, and abilities that they need to be successful, while also talking about all the other things they need to be successful, right? Their team ability and all of those interpersonal skills that go along with the technical skills. So
Nice.
Monday morning, 8 a.m. until noon.
Nice.
Perfect. Well, I am Monday afternoon. Unfortunately, I just found out that I'll be going against someone here, but I'm doing the Be a Better Company, and it's all about culture. So
Nice.
if how do you improve the culture of your department, your company, mission-driven success, talking about values and how important values are to us as people and to our organization, and how training plays into that, and just setting ourselves up so that as company officers, we have control of our stations and we can actually create a team environment where everyone has success. So that'll be Monday afternoon. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that 4-hour workshop. So should be good. But make sure, like I said, get yourself out there. If you have never been to FDIC, you're passing up a great opportunity. It's the Super
Mecca.
Bowl of it's everybody's there. If you walk out on the floor, just have a plan, because there's everything. If it's not there, you don't need it. It's literally everything in the fire service is on that.
It doesn't
is on that.
exist. Yeah.
It does not. It does not.
It does not exist.
Soap, the fire trucks is there for you at the fire service, and everything in between. So
Yeah.
it's been a great conversation, Chief. I appreciate your time
Thank
today
you.
coming on.
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah, make sure you guys, like I said, get out there, get his new book, and Brian Brush's new book, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple months at the next Humpday Hangout with ISFSI. Thanks, everybody, and stay safe.
Thank you.